taken out. But just time wasted for KZ in the jungle. They are able to get this mid lane pushed in though. Should be another mid turret. Here comes Ambition. Will only pick up Rascal, but that's 5 members in the Cataclysm. And so a lot of damage coming out here. Prey in the back getting extremely low. Cuvee coming in from the side. Ruler just totally left alone. And KZ getting a little bit too aggressive. That's going to be another ace. 5 members of Kingzone getting cleaned up by KSV.
Might be the end of the game as well. They can move the minion wave closer here to have a couple of minions. You were talking about Crown's bling in the player shots. The bling was all on Ambition, barring 5 members then going golden with the stopwatch. It's going to be game 1 to KSV. It's not about Rascal, it's about how smart KSV drafted. The Nidalee came back for Kingzone, it came back for Peanut. It left something to be desired. 1-0 KSV.
Nicely done. That solid former Samsung, now KSV. Team play and later game fighting. That later game composition really worked out for them in the end. Very solid game for them. Coming out strong.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, after a victorious game 1 for KSV Esports. Not to the surprise of many, I imagine. That draft was quite polarizing. Guys, what did you think of the team composition? Jesper, you start.
I really like the team compositions. I think that KSV, they had a nice idea about them wanting to control the mid game to late game. And I think that it worked out really well considering the way that they were playing.
Okay. Aaron, what did you feel about that game? Did you feel burned by the massive multi?
No, not at all. I really didn't like the composition brought out by Kingzone Dragon X. There were some picks that I feel that they went for which were quite inoptimal, considering that I find BDD's selection of the Cassiopeia pick really confusing, because you have Malzahar and a Azir open, which are absolutely fine with dealing with Ryze on their own, and in the case of Azir, can scale just as hard as Ryze can in his new form, so I did find that interesting that they went that route.
Unhappy with the Cassiopeia and the draft in general. Dara, what are your thoughts?
I'm feeling very similarly. I didn't like the Nidalee pickup. Well, I think it was okay. Not a great pick. More of a B tier pick, I think, in the jungle at this point. Patch 8.1.
I didn't like the
Peanut
for having comfort
either.
in his first game on a new team.
I didn't like the Cassiopeia either. As Aaron said, you have that Zoe, Malzahar, Azir. All 3 of them were available. And they decided to go for Cassiopeia. Just meaningless, pointless to see it. I just don't like seeing that, especially when there's so much better picks to pick into that Ryze. And even just in general in the mid lane, even if you wanted to pick something blind, Azir, Zoe, Malzahar, all great blind picks, and they decided to go for the Cassiopeia. They didn't even go for that early jungle gank into the mid lane, which one would have assumed if you wanted to go for the Nidalee and Cassiopeia. For that synergy, you want to go for that level 3, level 4 gank in the mid lane, get her ahead early, because it's going to be pushing against you by the Ryze, having that early push power, which we actually did see. But then there was that almost failed invade towards the top side of KSV by Peanut, which really wasn't what I was expecting.
Oh, you'd rather have seen him go for a lane and try and deal some direct damage rather than fighting in the jungle. Okay, we had a chat about the masteries, the runes, rather as they're called, and how we thought they were going to go that game. So, what did you guys think about that? Was it as expected? Did you see some different things? Jesper, I know you talked about something specific here.
Yes, I really liked that Rascal picked up the Dematerializer up in the top side. I think that when you pick up the Dematerializer on someone like Eoin, you get a lot of lane priority. Obviously, you can utilize the passive, which gives you permanent damage to minions, and with Eoin already being a very effective pusher, going up against Gnar, which isn't a favorable matchup for the Eoin, I think you gain so much power that then is something you can translate into the mid lane. You could have translated into the mid lane. We didn't see a lot of that top lane priority being used that way, but the idea was correct, and I really liked that they put priority on having that rune.
I think maybe the priority was shown by killing that fluffy little creature a few times. I really enjoyed that.
Well, Eoin died a little bit as well.
Eoin did die a few times as well.
It all evens out.
Aaron, what did... so we've got a replay to analyze. We're going to go through that fight on the, I believe, at the bots T1, where maybe things don't go as planned for me. Shout, go now.
Cool, we'll go. So as we can see, the Ruler and Core JJ are really bullying out Prey there, and as you see, Prey's forcing to ultimate, so you end up with the Ornn teleporting in, and even though that the Call of the Forge God gets blocked off by the Unbreakable from Braum, you have Varus separated off, so he gets killed straight after his stopwatch, and that just leaves Core JJ in the dust after 4 members come in with when speed out gets it in Italy.
So, clearly that didn't go to plan. What would you guys like to have seen differently? Dara,
Well,
how would you have played that?
I think that they were a little bit out. I have to go for the side. Ruler was a little bit too out of position. He was a little over enthusiastic, I think, in that lane. He was caught out between the 2 walls there. So he was forced to go towards the tri-bush, which then Core JJ couldn't help him in that 3 versus 1 scenario. So to make it a 3 versus 2, he couldn't have stayed alive even a little bit longer than he actually did. So he did everything that he could have done, except for maybe heal. I'm not sure if his heal was actually available at that point or not. But he was, I think, out of position there, and there's nothing more that they could have really done positioning-wise to actually make better of that situation. They didn't even get the kill onto Prey, so they just gave up 2 kills for what ended up being, I think, a tower in the top side. And I'm not sure quite else what they got from that. They got a little bit of pressure.
And the Rift Herald.
They got blue buff and Rift Herald. Blue buff, you can take it or leave that. Rift Herald, yeah, sure, that's fine. But I think that they did screw up a little bit in that bot side in the positioning.
Okay. I mean, I think the blue buff might have helped what was going on in the mid lane. I mean, we had a bit of a lead. BDD wasn't having a great time. Yeah, wasn't great, was it? Sort of push the button a bit too hard. So we've gone over the team comps, we've gone over the runes. Has anyone got any further comments on the runes? Because minion dematerializer helped a bit. I mean, what do we think of these keystones? Have we seen anything super effective in game 1? Something will change in game 2?
There was quite a lot of popularity on the magical boots, which I did kind of expect. There are some situations where I think they're not always optimal, because there are some times where you are going to want to pick those up rather than wait like 10 minutes into the game so that you can. I was surprised that we had a little amount of zombie wards. We only had Peanut and Ambition, I believe, take the zombie ward simply because they were going through the electrocute tree, going through the domination tree and taking electrocute as their main keystone. And considering that when you do take the ward, it replaces it for 3 minutes, it does give you a lot of great vision control in the early game. And I believe we had a point about, speaking of vision control in the early game, especially on KSV's side.
Yes, KSV, they put a lot of priority on that vision. We didn't necessarily see it translate into objectives. They lost a Mountain Drake at one point in this game where Peanut went in and stole it, but they put a lot of priority on having that vision. And after all, they were a team composition that wanted to scale into the mid game, so they needed to do so. You could see at 18 minutes into the game, they had 9 pings, and it just ended up helping them so much having this priority on vision, because that meant that at one point where the first ban was taken, Kingstone Dragon X, they were in complete vision. They had no control of the jungle of KSV Esports, and therefore they ended up losing 5 members after taking that Baron.
It was a bit of a mess.
Just a tiny bit of a mess.
I don't think there's a better way to describe
it. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It was a slaughter.
See differently. I would like to see some adaptations to Game 2. I suppose we better get on with it. Jesper, what would you like to see out of Kingstone Dragon X to claw this one back from KSV?
Oh, I would love to see them take away the Rise from Crown. I think Crown's Rise was a huge problem in that game. He was able to split push quite efficiently with it, killed BDD a few times as well. And I think that you either want to force away the Braum, because Braum was so effective against Eoin, or you take away the Varus from Ruler. One of those two guys have to go. The CC was just too much for Kingstone Dragon X to handle.
Okay, Dara, in the same vein, not that I've prepared you, I'm going to put you on the spot. What does KSV have to do? Oh, go on.
What KSV has to do? I think KSV,
what does KSV have to Now that we've heard from Jesper, think the likely way in, or does KSV?
I think KSV has to keep things pretty much the same they were. I don't think they did too much wrong. They could, of course, improve on a couple of things, like in the bot side with that replay that we showed. They can improve in the positioning, perhaps, maybe improve in their coordination. But I think that their team comp is perfectly fine the way it was. They might be able to go for something different to the Rise in the mid lane, but the Gnar and Driver all good in top side, and then Varus and Braum, I really like that in the bot side. So nothing wrong with their team comp to my mind, but I would like to see a better mid and a better jungler on the side of Kingzone Dragon X, because it just doesn't really fit into the current meta. It doesn't fit into the sort of style that they like to play, that we've seen them play before, especially with Peanut, who likes to go for these aggressive sort of tanky junglers like the Sejuani that I said in the pre-game. I like to see him pick up the Sejuani and preferably not have that band away on their side, and maybe pick up something like the Azir, the Zoe, the Malzahar, something that we keep repeating over and over, something that's far better than the Cassiopeia.
Okay, so hopefully it's Christmas and they can get the team comp they want out of this draft. I hope so. Aaron, closing thoughts. What do you want to see out of the next game from both teams?
So I would like to see Kingzone Dragon X to just dial back a little bit. There were points in that game where they were very overzealous, particularly at the Baron. They saw They saw Ruler out of position and instantly went for it, even though they weren't really in a position to try and take that Baron. And then especially at the mid lane, where they were very overeager for that turret and ended up just getting clean aced and lost the game straight from there. So I'd like Longju to just Kingzone to collect themselves just a little bit and just play the game not slower, but just play with a little bit more of a level head and think through some of the moves that they're going to make, because it felt like that they were going for some desperate moves at some points in that game.
Do you think they got to check those power spikes, pick their times, punch once, punch hard?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds reasonable to me. It sounds like a Korean play style. We saw a little less discipline. Maybe the preseason's been a bit of fun. Okay, I think we're in game 2. We're going to go over to the casters to pick that phase.